We're going to start going through some of the different concepts we're going to be learning in geometry. So we're going to start with section 1.1 to keep us organized. And for some of us, we've already started the vocabulary in here, but I'm going to take you through the student journal. So you need your student journal that you should have picked up at school at some point last week. And if you didn't get one, you need to make sure you contact me and let me know so we can get that to you. But I'm going to take you through just a quick little intro to what your journal looks like for all of our different topics. And then we're going to go ahead and get into some, doing some practice problems for a minute. So we did the exploration in class, and we used our online book for that. But you could write it here too, and some of you may have done that as we were going. But I think most of us probably would have done it digitally. And if you like the hard copy, you use it. But that's always here. So sometimes I might actually say to you, I would like you to put this in your journal, and it's a good way to keep a nice, concise notebook for you right now. Other things to think about are, saving things to your Google Drive. Like we're starting to make those interactive vocab lists. Save those. If you go to student.desmos.com, you can find any activities we've done. And as we're doing those activities, maybe even making a couple notes for yourself along the way. But that's all part of investigating the different geometrical concepts we are learning. So, so then next you get into this, it has like vocab built in here. We're doing this virtually, and we're doing this interactively with some Desmos graphs. So that's how we're going to build our vocabulary. So we're really not going to fill that out too often, but we're going to hopefully find some interactive things to do with that. And then finally, this is a summary of everything before we get into our practice problems. Some definitions like points, what they are, what they mean, some notation. So for a line, it has one dimension. You can see the notation, how we name it, what a plane is. These are some of the vocabulary words we had already learned and you've already played around with. So some defined terms, segments and rays. Again, the notation for like lines, it's a little hard to see here, but a line would be like line AB. And when we had our discussion the other day with Desmos, we actually said we can name that line BA also, but it has double arrows on the top. So we would say either line AB or you can name it line BA. And that's just because the line extends in both directions forever. So it's okay to do. Now for a segment, you can also flip the order here because it has a defined start and end. However, for the segment, it does not have arrows above what you are referring to. So these are just abbreviated shorthands for saying the words line AB or segment AB, but this does not have arrows. And an array, so this one right here, this would be ray AB. And what we had a discussion about was we cannot, oh, that's a bad beat. It's running away from me. Try that again. A little glitchy with some of the stuff. Technology is a wonderful thing, but it's not perfect, and not everything is compatible with each other. So that would be an ideal situation in the world, but we're doing a pretty good job. It seems to be working pretty well. So this is ray AB. A has to come first because that's the endpoint. Now this is ray BA. B has to come first because it is the endpoint. So we would name this ray as BA, and so you can clearly see I start at B and I move toward A. Okay, and then opposite rays. Basically, opposite rays are just two rays that make a line. That's all it is, really. And C is like this point C would be between A and B, but one ray would go to the right, the other ray would go to the left. So let's get into some little practice problems. This is the part, so this is on page 6 of your student journal. These are kind of like our example problems for section 1.1 with intro to some points, lines, and planes. Okay, I'm going to take you through a couple of these here. Give two other names for that's line CD. So you can kind of see that line CD, it dashes right here. That means it's going through the plane. So it's almost if you poke a hole through a piece of paper. Another name for line CD is you can call it line DC. It's going to let me write real well. We can call that line DC and switch the order because we can do that for a line. Or for lines, we also like to do sometimes, we also name lines occasionally with a little or a lowercase letter next to the line. We can name that also line M. So sometimes the lines are named with a lowercase letter next to the line itself. So either one is acceptable. All three of these are acceptable. Line CD, line DC, or line M. Give another name for plane M. So if you look over here, plane M, if you look at M, a lot of times we label points with capital letters. We also do that for planes, but there is no point by M, right? Like there's no little dot to represent a point. So this also represents that plane M, right? It can be used. So when you rename a plane, you can either give it a capital letter or you can pick 3 points that are not on the same line. So we called points that are on the same line, according to our vocab, those are called collinear points. We can choose for this choose any 3 non-collinear points. I'm going to try to type that real quick. Might be just quicker. Choose any 3 points on M that are not on the same line. So they have to be non-collinear. So we could name this also. So we could pick, let's say, you could pick A, C, and E. So you can name it ACE. You can name it ABE. You can name it CBE. You can name it. Well, that's pretty much about it. Those are 3 that you can name it A, B. I already got that one. But any of those points that are not on the same line should be okay to use to name that. Okay. Name 3 points that are collinear. So it says name 3 points that are collinear. So collinear points have to be on the same line. So according to this, that should be AC and B. They're on the same line. It says then name a 4th point that is not collinear with these 3 points. So point not collinear with A, B, and C. Those points, you could either pick E or B. E or D is fine. Okay. So name a point that is not coplanar with points A, C, and E. Well, that means not coplanar means not in the same plane. So not coplanar equals not in same plane. That means for us, not in the same plane as ACE. Well, B is in the same plane because they're on the same sheet, but D is not. So the only option for this is point D. It's above the plane, right? So what is another name for line PQ? You can either name line PQ, you can call it line QP with the arrows over it, or you can call it by the little j right here, or we can call it line J. What is another name for line RS? That can either, you can call it RS, or this one could be called SR, or just the letter K. So it's almost identical to number 5. This one could be called SR or K. Name all rays with endpoint T. So what are some rays we have with endpoint T? I'm gonna type them and I'll put the notation above it. I'll write them in. So endpoint T. So for a ray that has T as an endpoint, T has to come first. So we can go T to R. We could go T to P, T to Q, or T to S. There's 4 of them. All you do is just go right out from point T right here. Just go out from point T. Any direction you want, and there's your ray. That's ray TR. So TR, all of these should have a little arrow above it showing that this is a ray. On the diagram, draw planes M and N that intersect at line K. That's kind of hard to draw. So they intersect on this line right here, but we're going to try our best. It's kind of like 2 pieces of paper. You'd have one plane that looks like this, and then you could take a different plane and sort of see if we can draw this okay, or if I can, I should say. Draw a little plane that kind of looks like it's going through the other one. Oh, off the page. And sort of like if you took a couple pieces of paper and stacked them together. So it would almost look, oh, it's glitching again. Something like this, where the 2 sheets of paper would just slice each other right on line K. So that would be like the other plane coming through here, like off the paper. Okay. On the diagram, okay, exercise, let's see. Sketch the figure described. That to me looks like segment AB. So segment AB would just be an segment with 2 endpoints. That looks like ray BC. So this would have the endpoint at B. And then you'd have another point somewhere on the ray at C. That's called BC. And then line K in plane M. So I need to draw a plane. So you need to give yourself like a sheet of paper. Make sure you label that as plane M. And then I'm going to change my color and then draw a line that sits on that plane. So lines have to have these arrows. So throw a few arrows on there. Sorry, this is glitching. If we're on Loom, which I am, you can always speed this up if you need to. Okay, and that's line K. So there's your line K on plane M.